We now return once again to the sacred assembly, a gathering filled with stillness and quiet reverence. In the previous moment, the Buddha revealed that the great light shining across the 10 directions did not arise by chance. It flowed from the boundless compassion of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, whose vow embraces all beings in suffering. As this truth was spoken, the entire assembly became silent, touched by deep wonder. Heavenly beings and bodhisattvas felt their hearts soften under this radiant presence. And now, as we return together, we allow our own minds to slow down, leaving behind the noise of daily life and gently entering again this atmosphere of peace. Within the great assembly, all beings remain attentive and still, sensing that something profound is about to unfold. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, whose compassion knows no boundary, prepares to speak before the Buddha and the gathered multitude. The air itself seems to pause, as if the universe is listening. What is the source of this immense power? How did such compassion arise, strong enough to illuminate worlds and comfort a suffering heart? With humility and reverence, the Bodhisattva begins to share the story of past cultivation and the origin of the Great Compassion Mantra. And as we return to this holy scene, we open our hearts, ready to receive the teachings of compassion. Then, before the great assembly, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva began to speak, sharing memories from countless ages ago. In an immeasurably distant past, a Buddha appeared in the world, known as Tathagata, of the calmly abiding king of 1,000 lights, a Buddha whose wisdom and compassion shone across infinite realms. Moved by compassion for all beings, this Buddha revealed the Great Compassion Dhāraṇī mantra, entrusting its boundless power to guide beings out of suffering. Upon hearing this sacred mantra, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva felt immense joy arise, and in that very moment, his realization leapt forward, rising from the first stage to the 8th stage of the Bodhisattva path. Filled with gratitude and limitless compassion, the Bodhisattva then made a profound vow before the Buddha and the countless beings present. He declared, "If this great compassion mantra can truly bring peace and liberation to all suffering beings, then may my body immediately manifest 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, so that I may see and help suffering in every direction." And as soon as this vow was spoken, miraculous signs appeared. 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes manifested upon his body. The worlds of the 10 directions trembled, and countless Buddhas radiated brilliant light, blessing him and illuminating all boundless realms. At this point, many listeners may wonder, how could Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva advance so quickly on the path of awakening? How could realization leap from the first stage to the 8th stage almost instantly? Was it only the power of the mantra? Or did something deeper shift within his heart? The sutra gently shows us an essential truth. Spiritual awakening does not happen only through effort or spiritual techniques. It happens when compassion becomes stronger than the instinct to protect the self. Most suffering appears because the mind constantly revolves around me and mine, trying to secure safety and avoid pain. The mind keeps whispering, "My future, my success, my fears, my security." And so, life becomes a narrow circle of personal concern. But Avalokiteshvara changed the direction of his heart completely. Instead of asking, "How can I be free?" he asked, "How can all beings be freed from suffering?" In that very shift, the wall around the small self began to crumble. And when the self becomes lighter, wisdom naturally appears. Realization deepens not because something new is added, but because illusion quietly falls away. Compassion opens the heart beyond its usual limits. We can observe the same truth in our own lives. When we are trapped inside personal worries, everything feels heavy and confined. But when we sincerely care for someone else, even for a brief moment, the heart suddenly widens, and suffering loosens its grip. Life feels more spacious. In this way, compassion is not only kindness toward others, it is also liberation for ourselves. It frees the mind from the prison of constant self-concern. And this is why Avalokiteshvara's awakening could unfold so quickly. Because when compassion becomes boundless, awakening naturally follows. Now we arrive at the heart of this episode. The Great Vow. A vow is not merely a beautiful promise spoken in a sacred moment. On the spiritual path, a vow becomes the direction of one's entire life. It is the moment the heart realizes, "I can no longer live only for myself." And this is why a great vow has the power to transform karma. Because karma is not only what happens to us. Karma is also the momentum of our habits, our fears, and unconscious reactions. When life keeps revolving around self-protection and personal gain, the same suffering quietly repeats itself again and again. But when a great vow arises, the inner direction changes. A new seed is planted within the heart, and from this seed, a new life begins to unfold. Avalokiteshvara's vow was not made to gain admiration or spiritual recognition. It was born from seeing the endless suffering of beings everywhere. His vow was simple, yet immeasurable. If this mantra can help beings, may my body become 1,000 eyes to see suffering and 1,000 hands to relieve it. This vow was not about glory. It was responsibility arising from compassion. And here lies the secret. True spiritual power does not arise from superiority or spiritual achievement. It arises from the willingness to stay present with suffering and to respond with love and wisdom. In modern life, we may not speak vows in sacred language, yet vows still arise within the human heart. When a parent silently says, "I will protect my children." When someone decides, "I will not pass my pain to another person." Or when we promise ourselves, "I will bring kindness wherever I can." These too are vows, and they quietly change the direction of life. Because the moment we begin living for something greater than personal ego, old patterns weaken, fear softens, and the path ahead becomes clearer. A great vow does not guarantee a life without difficulty, but it gives life a deep meaning, and meaning itself is powerful medicine for the human heart. This is why the sutra shows that the great vow is not merely an idea. It is a living force that reshapes destiny, turning suffering into a path of awakening and transforming ordinary life into a journey of compassion. The image of 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes is not meant to be understood only as a miracle. It is a profound teaching, a mirror reflecting the true nature of awakened compassion. First, the 1,000 eyes. Eyes represent seeing, but not ordinary seeing. They represent the courage to truly recognize suffering without turning away. Most people can see pain, yet still look away, not because they lack kindness, but because feeling deeply can be overwhelming. So the mind protects itself by becoming busy, distracted, or emotionally numb. But compassion begins at the moment we dare to see suffering without closing the heart. 1,000 eyes means seeing suffering in countless hidden forms. Pain does not appear only in tears. Sometimes it hides behind anger, behind silence, behind success, behind smiles, or behind indifference. To have 1,000 eyes means seeing beyond appearances, recognizing the wounded heart behind difficult behavior. And then come the 1,000 hands. Hands represent action, because compassion cannot remain only a feeling. Suffering is real, and beings need help. 1,000 hands means helping in many ways, sometimes through listening, sometimes through protection, and sometimes simply by not causing more harm. This is why the sutra presents eyes and hands together. Seeing suffering without helping turns compassion into helpless sorrow. But helping without understanding can become attachment, control, or the hidden desire to feel important. So the teaching is clear. True compassion must walk together with wisdom. Eyes represent wisdom, hands represent compassion. When wisdom sees clearly, compassion responds in ways that truly help. And sometimes, we must also turn those 1,000 eyes toward our own suffering. There are moments when we ourselves are the ones in pain, needing compassion. Sometimes we need those 1,000 eyes to gently see our own hidden wounds, and those 1,000 hands to hold ourselves with patience instead of judgment. Only when we learn to care for our own suffering can we truly care for the suffering of others. In daily life, one gentle word, one sincere listening, one moment of patience already awakens 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes within the human heart. And this is the deepest meaning. When compassion becomes real, it is no longer mystical. It becomes the way we live, the way we speak, and the way we walk in the world without adding more suffering. Another profound teaching in this sacred story is often overlooked. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva did not recite the mantra only once. He continued to uphold and live it through countless ages. Again and again, across immeasurable lifetimes, the practice continued. This reveals an important truth. Spiritual transformation rarely happens in a single moment of inspiration. A deep feeling may arise during meditation or when listening to sacred teachings. But if practice stops, old habits quietly return, like weeds growing back after rain. True change appears through steady practice, like water slowly shaping stone. In modern life, many people search for sudden awakening. They hope one powerful experience will remove suffering forever. But the mind has been shaped by years of fear, habit, and misunderstanding. So healing also requires patience and repetition. Each moment we return to awareness, each time we choose compassion instead of anger, each time we refuse to pass our pain to others, a new seed is planted. And when this continues gently over time, the heart slowly changes. Transformation then becomes not a passing feeling, but a stable way of living. Avalokiteshvara's example teaches us something simple. Awakening is not only about extraordinary experiences. It is about showing up again and again with sincerity. Some days the mind feels peaceful. Some days it feels restless and heavy. Yet practice continues. A small act of kindness, repeated daily, gradually becomes natural. And one day, without knowing when, we realize something gentle. Situations that once caused great suffering no longer shake us as before. This is the quiet power of continuous practice, where small, sincere efforts over time grow into great compassion and lasting inner freedom. In daily life, most of our stress comes from constant concern about ourselves. My work, my future, my security, my success. The mind keeps circling around personal survival, and when life becomes only about protecting this small self, the heart slowly contracts. We become more anxious, more defensive, and more easily hurt. But the sutra shows us a subtle turning point. When compassion expands beyond personal concern, the heart becomes lighter. In modern life, this may begin with something very simple. Checking on a friend who seems unusually quiet, helping a colleague who looks overwhelmed, or simply listening when someone needs to speak. In that moment, attention moves beyond me, and suffering loosens. And this is the first step. When compassion appears, life stops being only about survival and becomes about connection. And from this connection, a deeper intention naturally begins to grow. When compassion touches the heart, a new question appears. How do I want to live my life? This is where the spirit of the great vow enters modern life. A vow today does not need ritual. It may simply be a quiet decision. I will not add more suffering to this world. In daily situations, this means choosing patience instead of anger, choosing honesty instead of manipulation, choosing kindness even when tired. When parents decide not to pass their own wounds to their children, a great vow is already alive. When someone chooses integrity even when it costs something, a new karma begins. And once this direction is chosen, we naturally begin to see suffering more clearly around us. As compassion grows, our way of seeing changes. The thousand eyes begin to awaken in ordinary life. We start to see that behind anger there is fear. Behind cold behavior there is hurt. Behind arrogance there is insecurity. And then the thousand hands appear. Because once we see clearly, we naturally wish to respond wisely. Sometimes helping means listening. Sometimes helping means silence. Sometimes helping means setting boundaries so harm stops spreading. And sometimes the person we must help first is ourselves. Because a heart constantly exhausted cannot truly help others. And this is why practice must continue every day. True transformation does not come from one inspiring moment. It grows slowly through daily practice. Each time we pause before reacting in anger, practice deepens. Each time we choose patience instead of frustration, compassion strengthens. Each time we return to awareness after forgetting, the heart becomes steadier. Some days are calm, some days are difficult, yet practice continues, and gradually old reactions lose power. Kindness becomes natural, understanding appears faster, and suffering no longer controls us as before. This is how the teaching of compassion moves from sutra into real life. From compassion to vow. From vow to wise action. From action to steady practice. Until one day, without noticing when, compassion simply becomes the way we live. Before we end, let us rest together for a few quiet moments. If you feel comfortable, gently place one hand over your heart. Feel the warmth beneath your palm. Notice the soft movement of your breathing. There's nothing you need to solve right now. Nothing to fix. Simply allow the body and mind to soften. And in this quiet space, bring to mind someone you know who may be struggling at this moment. Perhaps a friend, a family member, or someone silently carrying pain. Hold their image gently in your heart, without judgment, without trying to change anything. And now, silently offer them a simple wish. May you be safe. May your heart feel lighter. May you find peace in your difficult moments. As this gentle wish flows outward, notice something beautiful. Compassion given also returns to your own heart. Rest in this feeling for a few breaths more, and when you are ready, carry this quiet compassion with you as we slowly bring this reflection to a close. As our gathering today gently comes to an end, the story of great compassion continues to unfold. In the next episode, we will listen further as the Buddha reveals the profound power of the Great Compassion Mantra. We will explore how this sacred mantra has the ability to transform suffering, soften heavy karma, and bring peace into the lives of countless beings. We will also discover an important truth. The mantra becomes effective not only through recitation, but through the compassion we cultivate within. And we will learn the conditions necessary for this practice to truly bear fruit. Until we meet again, may compassion continue to grow